Everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thanks for joining our panel discussion. My name is Mark Burnett. I am one of your hosts and a project delivery manager from the lovely island of Jamaica. Welcome to our digital transformation webinar series presented by the PMO Leader Global Community. And I just want to take this time to give a big shout out to Joe and everyone who has been leading these initiatives at the PMO, at the PMO Global Community. It's an inclusive community that has a lot of knowledge to share with our business and our organizational communities out there who are seeking support in the digital transformation, the PMO and the project management space. Today, we're happy to have an esteemed colleague of ours, Gaurav Dhooper, for our second episode of this digital transformation. Gaurav, just a synopsis of Gaurav, he's the head of the PMO Global Alliance India Hub and a vice president at GenPac. Very recently, and Gaurav will get into this a little bit more, he was rewarded with the token at the Thinkers 360 as one of our global influencer. So today our topic is on cloud transformation. You know, ever since the paradigm shift, you know, a lot of organizations have been thinking about cloud transformation. And, you know, cloud transformation, it's a powerful and an effective way to reinvent your organization across all three areas that we generally look at: people, process, and technology. So before we hand over the stage to Gaurav, I'll ask my co-host team, Manolis from Greece, and Jim from the USA. Jim, Manolis, can you kindly introduce yourselves to our audience?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Mark, for the introduction. I'm Manolis Papadakis from Greece. As Mark said, I'm one of your co-hosts today in this team for the digital transformation webinars that we deliver. As you may know, today's webinar is about digital transformation and PMOs. I wouldn't like to keep much time and introduce myself. So I am a project manager the last 14 years in the field of ICT. I'm doing research in the field of project management and business administration. And my passion is this field is the PMOs and the project management. So I will now give the stage to Jim to introduce himself, and hope you find our presentation interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Manolis. Jim Stewart here. I'm up in the Boston area. I'm an independent project manager now and an Agilist for about 20 years now. Well, Agile for the past 10. Done a number of PMOs in my lifetime, some cloud transformations as well, or at least migrations, I would say, to be more honest. And I do everything as project management. I teach, I do coursework, and a whole bunch of stuff. So my job during this will be, won't be saying much. We have 3 co-hosts, so we've divvied up the responsibilities. I'll be monitoring the chat for questions and moving the slides along for our guests. So I might be doing one or the other, so don't panic if I don't get to one or the other. I'll make sure the slides move forward for Gaurav, but I'll be watching the chat for questions, and we'll answer those at certain times. And that's it for me, and I think away we go.
Yes, great. So Gaurav, I wish we had some drum roll, but Gaurav, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you, PMO Leader, for having me on this platform. Thank you, Jim and Manolis as well. So I believe today's topic, as you can see, it's about cloud transformation. So before actually starting this topic, I would like to say a famous quote. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. So the point over here is this transformation is a journey, and we need to take step by step, evaluate the progress and adapt. Now, talking about cloud transformation, how it can be an enabler for your successful digital strategy implementation. It's very important to understand what cloud transformation is and how you should design your digital strategy to make the cloud program successful. Because both cloud transformation and digital transformation are very correlated, right? One goes with another, and how it can make both the initiatives successful. So, Mark, can you move on to the next slide, please? Okay. So these are some of the key takeaways in terms of what we should be considering while starting a cloud transformation initiative. We need to first understand how we can leverage the power of cloud for achieving your business goals and digital transformation success. So see, it is very important. We need to understand which all initiatives we should look for implementing the cloud programs. Then there is a very important need for integration of business and IT strategy. See, if your business and IT strategy are not aligned, you would face a lot of challenges in terms of implementing your digital program. Then, what are the critical success factors for PMOs in a digital transformation program, and how PMOs can play a bigger role in digital transformation journey? We'll talk about some specific critical success factors for project management offices. And we also need to understand how cloud transformation drives innovation, customer growth, to make you more resilient, agile, and disaster-proof. Jim, next slide, please.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, this is a brief introduction about me. So I believe Mark has briefly introduced me, and thank you, Mark, for promoting me during my intro. So though I am assistant vice president with Genpact, but I believe Mark introduced me as vice president. So that's a
that you're all set now.
Well, anyway, yeah. So this is a brief about me. So basically, I am a project and program management professional, and I am from India. And my passion is about implementing agile ways of working on agility, and implementing digital business strategy. Apart from this, I also hold the volunteer roles of president of PMO Global Alliance India Hub, which is the largest online community of PMO professionals. And I'm also the senior official of International Association of Project Managers. Apart from this, I'm also an active member and volunteer at Project Management Institute. And I also love sharing my thoughts on agile and digital transformation. This is about me. Next slide, please. Okay. So before actually jumping onto the topic, these are some of the facts and figures I believe you must have seen during the promos. So this is a research done by Cloud Industry Forum. And according to them, 91% of decision makers said that cloud formed an important part of their digital transformation journey. So you can see how important cloud transformation or your cloud initiatives are becoming for the overall success of your digital transformation. It is in fact accelerating the digital transformation. We'll talk more about it as we move further. And 40% are saying that the role of cloud was crucial. And of course, COVID-19 has been a significant driver in this digital transformation journey. Now, 69% have already sped up their digital transformation plans in some way as a result of this pandemic. Now, in terms of this research, there is another aspect involved for cloud adoption is your ESG initiatives, which are related to your environmental, social, governance things, which brings more social impact. So we'll see how these different cloud initiatives help in saving your IT energy, maximizing the utilization of shared resources on cloud, thus helping you to reduce your carbon footprint. So that's another aspect of cloud adoption. Next slide, please.
Before you go forward, Gaurav, I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking before, just for everyone. I know a woman who set up the PMO at a hospital in Boston. She's now the vice president. And she told us, I've gone to her PMO roundtables. She told us they were planning over the course of the last few years to roll out remote to all the doctors and nurses and staff. It's a very well-known hospital. When COVID came along, they did it in a weekend. They started Friday and they ended on Monday. And I know that telehealth has been greatly ramped forward because of COVID, technology in general. But I just thought I'd throw that out there as an anecdotal thing of me seeing what you just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So specifically coming to the topic, which is cloud transformation. So what actually cloud transformation means? See, some people think that if we are moving our application, on-premise applications to cloud or their data, this is cloud transformation. But this movement of your on-premise application to cloud is just one part of cloud transformation. So as you can see in this image, this is one part which we normally think that moving from your on-premise to cloud makes everything in terms of cloud initiatives. But this is just one part. It starts actually from the cloud strategy. Then it has another component called usage of data and analytics, security, optimization and management. So all these different components together form the cloud transformation, right? And as it is mentioned over here, it is a powerful and effective way to reinvent your entire organization. It helps you to streamline your operations, become more resilient, even create new business models and accelerate digital transformation, right? So basically it gives you that flexibility and scalability that supports your changing business priorities. Now talking about cloud strategy. So there are few important things which we need to understand. What all should we have in the cloud strategy part? So there is a very important aspect of communicating the vision, right? So how you communicate your vision is very important in terms of what is the business outcome you are expecting. And at the same time, you also need to understand that you are prioritizing in a correct manner. See, if you are starting your cloud strategy, you should always design your cloud strategy keeping in mind the speed and business value. See, these are the two important factors which will give you a competitive advantage. Because see, there are a lot of competitors in the market, and your strategy should be such that it should maximize your business value and it should also give you speed to outcome. Then you also need to prioritize a primary provider in a multi-cloud architecture. So here by multi-cloud architecture, we mean that you are taking these services not from a single provider, say for example, Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud Platform, but you are taking the services from more than one service provider. based on your needs. And because it gives you that flexibility, whenever one service provider is not able to serve you based on your workloads or your demand, then you can switch on to another service provider. Then you also need to have that resilience into the application architecture when you are building your cloud strategy. You also need to see how you can optimize your cloud native applications, and also look for building these cloud skills internally to fill the talent gap. See, every time you cannot hire the professionals from outside, you have to become self-sufficient. So in order to do that, you need to build and identify the gaps and enhance the skills of the existing employees in the organization. So all these factors, when you keep in mind, that makes a cloud strategy robust. Can you move on to the next slide, please?
Tim, you're muted.
Questions here from our guys. We had some cloud transformation questions for you. Mark or Manolis?
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, so that's a very good one there. So I was just looking at the chart, Gaurav, you know, and that's a very important point you mentioned about the cloud strategy is key to cloud transformation, and that will allow, that will enable the business, enable business models and the bottom line values of the business. So, I mean, what is really the public, private, and is there a difference between, say, a public, private, and a hybrid cloud transformation?
Absolutely. So very interesting question. And I think many people would like to understand what is the difference between these three. And basically, this question is also important because in your cloud strategy, you need to understand which cloud model you should adopt, right? So we need to understand what actually is a public cloud. So as the name public suggests, the resources and the services of the cloud provider is being used by multiple organizations over the internet. So that is why it means publicly it is being used, and it is not restricted to a single or an individual organization, right? Whereas if we talk about private cloud, it is set up on the private network of one single organization, right? And if we talk about hybrid cloud, it is a combination of public and private. An example could be, say, for example, currently you have normally regular IT workloads, but over the few days in a week, you have some spikes. There is an increase in the workload. So there you can make a combination of public and private cloud, right? Which gives you the benefit of both, and also helps you to keep your confidential data and sensitive information over private cloud, and non-sensitive information or the information which is publicly available to be kept on public cloud. So it gives you the benefit of both public and private. So that's the basic difference between these three. And then, of course, as I mentioned, there is a concept of multi-cloud also, where you avail the services of multiple cloud providers.
Okay, okay, thanks for that, Gaurav. I don't know, Manolis.
Do you have a question, Manolis?
Yes, yes, Mark. Yes, Mark. I was looking also to the graph, and I was wondering, what is your assessment of the current state of cloud transformation? What do you think of today's and future PMOs in cloud transformation?
Yeah, sure. So see, in terms of assessment of the current state of cloud transformation, There has been a recent research and press release from Gartner. If I'm remembering correctly, it is last month. So as per them, almost 2/3 of the spending which is being currently done on application software will be directed toward cloud technologies in 2025. So currently it is 57.7% as per Gartner, which will be increased to almost 2/3 by 2025. So you can see more than 65% or almost 2/3 is going to be spent on cloud technologies. And there is another research which is being done, out of which total 89% of the organizations are embracing multi-cloud approach, where they are using services from multiple cloud providers, right? And 80% are using a hybrid approach. And when it comes to public cloud, it is continuously accelerating because it gives you that scale and flexibility in terms of implementation. But along with that, there are certain challenges also. There is research which shows that significant cloud spend is also wasted. It is almost 32%. So we need to reduce that wastage by making our cloud strategy more important. So it takes us back to the initial discussion where we talked about what all we need to consider while designing our cloud strategy, right? So it is very important that whatever spending we are doing on cloud should be in a judicious way, right? And currently, many organizations are struggling to control growing cloud spend, right? And there is an estimate that public cloud spend was over budget by 13%. So this is again a challenge. So you can see there are benefits as well as challenges also, which we need to overcome through making our cloud strategy more robust.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you.
Okay, great. Great. So I really think the conversation is getting really exciting, you know. So I know earlier, Jim, you were alluding to a story, a story about a kind of transformation that you had experienced.
Mhm.
So it would be very interesting to hear if there are any questions from the audience or from yourself around cloud transformation, you know.
There's nothing from the audience right now. I have a question I'll ask Gaurav at the end, specifically about vendors, but I'll save that for the end when we're finishing up. So there's nothing we're asking from the attendees. There's nothing there unless you guys, if any, we can either ask more or move on to the next slide, whatever you want to do.
Yes.
Let's move.
Okay. Okay. Great. So, Gaurav, the next question here, Gaurav. You know, just looking at the diagram, you know, and just based on my experience, I mean, a lot of times, you know, in the trenches, you know, we get the term migration and transformation mixed up, you know, not realizing that they are totally different, you know. So, I mean, just based on your experience, I mean, what's the difference between the cloud migration and the cloud transformation? Because I'm sure there's a difference. There is some residual difference.
Definitely. Yeah. So see, as I mentioned, so cloud migration is basically moving your on-premise applications to cloud, right? So what you are basically doing, you are moving all your applications, your infrastructure on the cloud environment. That is moving from on-premise to cloud, as well as moving your on-premise data to the cloud database. But when it comes to cloud transformation, it requires much more than cloud migration. It requires that understanding which all applications I need to move to cloud. See, basically there could be very sensitive information in terms of finances or specific, say, IP, intellectual property of an organization, I cannot put that entire information on my cloud, right? Because if I put that information, I need to have some secured system. Only the restricted users need to have access. I cannot put it on public cloud. So that understanding, that assessment needs to be done before moving or migrating your application and data from on-premise to cloud. So that assessment is prior to that migration. Then you also need to understand what are the security protocols being used, because it is very important when you are moving your data and application on cloud, you need to have secured systems, right? You need to have your data encrypted. So all these things you need to keep in mind while availing any specific service from a cloud provider, right? And that brings a very interesting aspect, how you should basically select your cloud provider, right? There are different aspects to it. And for that, you need to see whether the cloud provider is taking care of all the certifications and standards, right? For example, say service organization control certifications. We normally call it SOC 1, SOC 2 reports, right? Which tells about whether the cloud providers are following these standards, these compliances. So SOC 1 basically deals with your financial aspects, and SOC 2 is more related towards the general security and the compliance. So while selecting a cloud provider, you should look into these certifications and standards. Then you should also need to look what are the data security, data governance, and business policies followed by the cloud service provider. Whether the contracts, the commercials, the SLAs, right, are in place. So for example, what is the business continuity plan? Say, for example, if you avail the service from a cloud service provider, whether they have defined SLAs, if some disaster goes, what is the continuity plan, right? And what is the reliability and performance? So you need to see maybe the analyst reports, their past reports which are published. Then you also need to see what is the exit plan. Say, for example, today you have services from an X provider, and tomorrow you want to change your service provider, but your existing service provider is using some proprietary type of controls or proprietary services. Now, in that case, it becomes very difficult to move from provider A to provider B. All these things you need to keep in mind while selecting a cloud service provider. And also,
Gaurav, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's a question here. So if you want to finish that, and I'll ask you the question.
Sure.
All set? Let me read this to you. I'll try to read this. So the person can speak up or I don't get it right. Question is, how do we deal with the security and operating on a daily basis? As we know, some daily operation is needed as an excuse for security. For this matters, especially the data cloud protection, government regulation, company regulation, et cetera. I guess a balance between security and operating on a daily basis, if I understand correctly. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So see, in terms of security, as I mentioned, that all these different standards and compliances need to be checked, right? Whenever you are selecting a cloud service provider, you need to see whether your cloud service provider is adhering to these certifications and standards, right? And along with that, see, it's your application, your data. So you also need to be very, very vigilant in terms of what data, what application is going on cloud, right? So you need to make sure that whenever you are migrating your data and application, you should have a secured channel, right? All the data transmission should be encrypted, right? Say, for example, some critical information related to your customers, right? Say, for example, a credit card information. So all these type of sensitive information need to be encrypted while you are transmitting from one node to another node, or you are moving from your local infrastructure to cloud infrastructure, right? So you need to take care of all these things while you are moving your data and your applications to cloud, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, to the person who asked that, does that make sense? You can chat the answer or speak up if you like, either one. I don't have that yet, so.
Yes.
Yes, yes, it makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, Gaurav.
Okay, great.
We on to the next slide, Gaurav?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so now coming to the part of digital strategy. So just now we discussed about cloud transformation, what all it contains, and now it is very important how we should design our digital strategy. So basically, let's first understand what digital strategy is. So it is basically a plan that employs digital initiatives to achieve organizational goals. Now, it is very important that we need to understand the organization goals and what are the objectives we want to accomplish. See, digital is one medium to achieve your organization goals. And it is very important that your digital strategy aligns well with your organization goals, right? And you need to maximize the business benefits of your data assets and technology focused initiatives, right? So it is very important that whenever you are creating a plan, you need to keep this thing in mind. What are the business benefit I am going to get, and how I am going to leverage the power of data and technology to achieve those organization goals, right? And it also requires cross-functional team. See, it's not a single team which is behind these initiatives. We need to have a collaborative environment of various teams, whether it's leadership, marketing, information technology teams, support teams, delivery teams, right? Sales team. Because see, it is very important that whenever we are creating a digital strategy, we also need to think what are the existing capabilities we have and what we can build. Now, there is a time to market involved with every capability, right? If you are going to build a new capability, you also need to think what is the time to market. And in parallel, you need to also analyze whether we can partner with someone who can provide this capability to us and enhance our skills. See, it's about assessing the strategic impact, right? So we need to understand how we can leverage the existing power of our partner with ourselves to make the digital strategy more strong or robust, right? And last but not the least, your digital strategy should be customer focused. See, everything revolves around customer focus. If you are able to get all these things right, I think it becomes very simple to implement your digital strategy. Next slide, please. Or any questions?
Before we do that, Gaurav, I think there's no questions in chat, but I think Mark and or Manolis may have a few for you. You're muted, Mark.
Yes, definitely. And thanks for that, Gaurav. So just paying keen attention to the slides here, Gaurav, and I am sure persons in the audience would like to know this as well. You know, this is something I've seen as well. how digital transformation should be defined in the context of cloud transformation, and to share with us how do you think this helps to drive the strategic value of the organization. So
Sure,
it's a few points here. The digital strategy, how should it be adapted or defined in the context of cloud transformation, and how this helps to drive the strategic value.
Sure. So in terms of how digital strategy should be defined, see, we have to choose one broad target for digital transformation. There should be one common target which we want to accomplish as part of digital transformation. See, it is not only about implementing the cutting edge technologies. It is about bringing business transformation also, right?
Yes.
You need to fundamentally change the way you were working on an existing, say, initiative or an application.
Yes.
Now it should bring some sort of benefits where the digital and the business transformation brings more value, as well as it also brings a change in the mindset, right?
Yes.
Now that mindset is again driven from the existing culture. So all these aspects need to be kept in mind while we are building a digital strategy. And also we need to first look for easy wins or low hanging fruits. Don't go with a big bang plan where you do not have full control and you do not have that visibility, right? So start small, look for easy wins, assess their value, and then keep on building it, right? So that's the best way of creating a digital strategy and increasing the strategic value of the transformation.
Okay, great. Before I will ask Jim to just check the chat. There's a part B to this one, Gaurav. So yes, now we have the digital transformation. It's defined and it connects the cloud transformation and the strategic value of the organization. But as you know, we are pretty much in like a project economy, and so the next thing is to identify or to measure the value, or to realize the bottom line value. So how do you think we can prioritize and measure the performance of these kind of projects in cloud transformation? What are some things that you've seen, that are very effective for the clients?
So very interesting question, because that actually lays the foundation for building value-driven PMOs, right? Because every PMO is interested what is their role in this digital transformation or cloud transformation journey, right? And
Yes.
that prioritization is very important, because they have their traditional background where they have been prioritizing their existing projects or the programs, which all initiatives we need to basically go with, right? So that we can achieve the organization goals. But when it comes to cloud transformation, there are certain specific aspects which we need to look for. And the first one is about the risk involved. See, for example, if you're moving your existing application data from on-premise to cloud, you need to first understand what is the business problem it is going to solve and what is the risk involved, because you will be exposing your applications and data. And that gives you the pointer which cloud model you should adopt, whether it should be private cloud if your data is too sensitive, whether you should go for public cloud if you can expose your data and applications, or you should keep a mix of public and private cloud, right? The next part is the complexity. Now, it is very important to understand the complexity of the applications and the data. See, it all depends on the complexity which defines the initiatives or the projects we need to prioritize. If you have a very complex project, you should keep it on stage 2 or 3. If you have a simple project which can be easily transformed or easily migrated from on-premise to cloud, you should go with that. So that basic rule of complexity applies over here as well. Then the timelines. What are the timelines involved in this entire journey? If you can get regular returns, or you can analyze the benefits after every, say, quarter or 6 months, it would be much advisable as to go with a very big project which doesn't have that visibility. So it's better you define your outcomes or define your goals in such a way that you can measure it, right, at a certain interval of time. And then you also need to assess the organizational maturity for prioritization. Why? See, organization maturity gives you that benefit of making a cloud transformation program successful or failure. Because if your organization does not have that maturity or that experience of moving or migrating your on-premise applications to cloud, then you would need to take the help of some outside experts or build that capability internally, right? So that assessment is very important. What is the maturity level? So all these factors decides which particular projects you should prioritize, which project programs you should select for implementation.
Okay, great. Jim, anything from the chat? Or we
Nothing
can just
from,
proceed?
nothing from chat, Mark, so we can roll on or whatever.
Okay, you can go to the next slide. Yeah.
We'll do. The framework.
So see, this is a very interesting framework from Boston Consulting Group, as you can see. So it talks about the 5 rules of digital strategy. And these are very important while you design your digital strategy. First, we talked about the cloud strategy. Now we are talking about digital strategy, right? So in terms of digital strategy, as Mark, you a few minutes back, you mentioned about the strategic value and the strategic impact. I think that's the first rule which this framework talks about. You need to assess the strategic impact. How will it affect your customers and the entire value stream? Now, when you are starting an initiative, you need to know what is the value it is going to deliver. It can't be like you are at the midway of the initiative, then you are doing some assessment. Okay, this is the value which it is going to deliver. That will be very difficult to take the step back or move forward, right?
Yes.
So it is very important that you should have that understanding. You should have that expertise to assess the strategic impact at the very first stage, right? And for that, you need to know your customers well. And what is the entire value chain you are going to deliver? And also you need to understand what are the business benefits attached to it, right? Then the second rule is set your digital ambition high. Now, see, it is a very interesting aspect. On one side, we are talking about you should target at low hanging fruits, right? Or quick wins. And on the other side, we just talking about the second rule, set your digital ambition high. Now, this may give a understanding that, okay, we need to think big, we need to have a very big plan. No, it doesn't mean that. It actually means that you should have a holistic view of your ambition, of your goals. If that holistic view or that ambition is very low, then the chances of failure are more as compared to high ambition and holistic view. So that's the idea behind what is the target or what is the needle you want to point to, and what are the areas you want to achieve. So that's why it says set your digital ambition high. And there is a very popular example of Domino's and Google. You know, Domino's and Google went public in the same year, in 2004. Now, if somebody had invested at that time in Domino's, he would have definitely earned good returns in terms of Google's data migration or the cloud transformation strategy, which was done along with Domino's. So now you can see this strategic alliance or the strategic partnership between Domino's and Google at that point in time gave good returns to people who had done investment, right? So that's the idea behind having that strategic muscles, that strategic impact, and keeping your digital ambition high, right? Then comes you have to place big bets. What are the highest value use cases? See, you need to basically prioritize, and that's the role of PMOs, which comes into action, right? You should always prioritize your highest value use cases and keep the lowest value use cases at the bottom. So just like prioritization in your product backlog, right? You prioritize based on your value, then the business need, right? And sometimes the customer preference, right? So all these things you need to keep in mind based on the value of use cases. Then you also need to build new strategic muscles. How do the capabilities and culture need to change to fit the business goals, right? And it requires a lot of strategic partnerships, the capabilities which you want to build, but you don't have it. So there comes the role of strategic alliances, how you can build those capabilities. And it also triggers a question whether I should build it or buy it. So that build versus buy decision is very important in terms of getting that competitive advantage. It's all about competition in the market. And if we are busy building over years and years, and some competitor disrupted the entire value chain and they took away all our business and profits. And you know what happened with our lot of big players, Kodak, then Blockbuster at one point in time. Now Netflix has taken over entire business from them. So these were the early adopters in terms of how you can build those strategic muscles, right? And last but not the least, you need to manage your transformation actively. How should we adapt, right? So we need to have that transformation initiative or the business transformation aspect always in mind, that it is ultimately going to provide better business value and transform your entire business. It is not just for the sake of automating the things or moving your things to the cloud, but it should give you that return on investment, right? So that is very important when you look at the holistic aspect of the digital strategy.
Amazing, amazing. That's well nailed down, Gaurav. So insightful. Can we move to the next slide, Jim? I
Sure.
think we have about 10 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is one of the interesting case studies which is available on internet. So this is the link which our participants can go through. So this is the case study of Spotify. So as you know that this is the streaming music company and the music service provider. And they basically started their journey to Google Cloud Platform way back in 2015. Now, this is a very interesting case study in terms of how they started this initiative and what were the challenges they faced, right, in the existing applications which were on-premise, right? And Spotify, if you know, currently has 406 million active users as on date. And out of that, 180 million are premium subscribers. So you can see the large user base which it has, and it needs to give that best service to its customers so that it gives a great customer experience, right? So this actual migration plan started in 2015, and it was broadly set up into two parts: the services and the data. So Spotify has everything on premise, right, in their local environment. Now, the huge challenge was that this entire architecture was built on microservices, right? So these microservices are loosely coupled independent services in the entire service-oriented architecture, right? Now, the challenge was you need to migrate those 1,200 microservices from on-premise data centers to Google Cloud Platform. And the basic need was they wanted to free up their developers from worrying about provisioning and maintaining the infrastructure locally. And that's why they adopted this Google Cloud Platform. And the goals of migration was to minimize disruption to product development. Because every time this development was being done, the developers need to spend a lot of time in provisioning and maintaining the infrastructure. Now, when they move to platform as a service architecture of Google Cloud Platform, they were actually freed up from having that worry of how they will provision it, because Google Cloud Platform provides that entire development and the testing environment and even the deployment. And then the second goal was to finish as quickly as possible to avoid the cost and complexity, right? And also what happened was their pipeline was carrying around 800,000 events per second. This means there were 800,000 events which were happening or the requests which were coming to Spotify before migration to Google Cloud Platform. And this these number of events were continuously increasing. So this required a cloud platform which could handle these ever-growing number of requests and events, right? And once they moved from this local infrastructure or on-premise data center to cloud, they were able to handle 3 million events a second. So you can see from 800,000 to 3 million, almost 4 times, right? And there was a very important way of communicating the lessons learned through this case study. They first prepared and tried to build a minimal use case, as we talked about low-hanging fruits, right? So build a minimal use case to show the benefits of moving to cloud platform.
And then, Gaurav, I'm sorry, we have about 5 minutes left, and I don't miss anything, but there's also a question that came up from someone. We have this one. So I will leave it to you. The question that came in was a challenge in the bandwidth on premises, or is more of a comment. So maybe you can work that on to the 5 minutes that we have left. Whatever you can do, but I didn't want to ignore that comment.
Sure. So is there any, so that's a comment, not a question, right?
Yeah, they just said the next challenge is the bandwidth on premise. I don't know if you want to address this first, and we only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So I think I can see this comment from Ida, where he talks about the challenges is the bandwidth on premises. Yes. So that's the biggest challenge. And I think that challenge can be resolved by moving to cloud platform, right? So I think all these things need to be kept in mind. And another aspect was their team was very focused when we talked about that Spotify journey. And they also build a dedicated migration team, right? So all these things in terms of planning, focus, building a dedicated migration team made their cloud journey successful. And as you can see on the current slide, what are the critical success factors for PMOs in digital transformation journey? Now, see, in terms of these critical success factors, again, we need to think from the strategy execution level. So it cannot be on the aspect of a single project or a program, but we need to make our digital ambition high, right? So then you need to think about the portfolio level strategy execution, which all projects or programs you need to prioritize, right? And you need to see the benefit or the impact which these projects or programs are bringing. You also need to have that business alignment and executive sponsorship, because without executive sponsorship, PMOs cannot be successful. And there is a concept of enterprise PMO. So it is more around building that mindset so that they can work as change hubs, right? Because see, every project brings a change. Every project has something new. So all these things will come into action when you have that mindset at the enterprise level. And the PMOs also need to think about the level of automation and leverage the digital capabilities which they have. And last but not the least, focus on the overall value being generated, which is very important.
Okay, great. Jim, anything from the chat? Yeah, you're muted, Jim.
I know. Anything out there from the chat world? I have a question, but I'd rather defer to our guests if you have a question. We're in the last minute or two here.
Yeah.
But Gaurav, I would ask you very quickly, and it is impossible to answer, I won't hold you to it. I'm a mid-sized company with a data center. Am I looking at a year or two to do this? Typically more than a year?
So can you come again? You're looking for one.
I'm a mid-sized company with a data center, let's say. Okay. Am I looking at probably more than a year? Am I looking at a couple of years for your typical migration transformation, would you say?
Yeah. So see, as I mentioned, so you need to basically prioritize which are the high value use cases or the applications which you need to move to cloud. Everything, if you think about that, you need to move everything to cloud, then I think it would be a tedious job. So you need to prioritize which all programs or which all applications data you need to move to cloud, which will give you that business value, right? And then go about incrementally building that cloud implementation.
Yeah. Thoughts? We're right there. We're right at the hour just about. Mark?
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of the PMO global community and our team here, Gaurav. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We deeply appreciate this. And I just want to say to the audience, thanks again for coming out for our second episode. And do feel free to check in with the PMO Leader website. There is so much there that you can benefit from. You know, you have a lot of webinars, you know, books, you know, just so many information to help you and your organization and by extension, your community. So just feel free to check out the website. It's here. And if anyone out there who wants to share something with the community as well, I think you can go down to the last slide, Jim. Just feel free to reach out to any of us if you have anything that you want to share with the community. Our contact details are here as well. So guys, if there are anything that you want, the PMO Leader is this one-stop shop knowledge where you can get anything you want. It's an inclusive community. It's a part of the PMO, the global PMO community that is just willing to share selflessly. That's it. Anything, Manoles, Jim?
Nope. Thanks, everybody.
No, thanks, everybody. And stay tuned for our next events.
Thank you so much,
Gaurav.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so much.
audience.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.